No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by PlayNow, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue, as well as on all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'll tell you one thing, Dave Manouk. It was a lot more fun watching this game here at Boston Pizza Taylor Avenue than it would have been watching the game at home by yourself. Because here you had great food, great company, great drinks, and things of that nature. But everything else about that game, from a Winnipeg Jets perspective, was an all-systems failure as the Jets get drubbed by the St. Louis Blues in Game 3 of this playoff series. The Blues with the commanding 7-2 victory over the Winnipeg Jets. This is Dave Manouk. I'm your host, Drew. We're live at Boston on Taylor here to talk about Game 3. The Jets still lead the series 2-1, but certainly a statement made by the St. Louis Blues from puck drop, the far better of the two teams. And the question, and we're not going to brush over this game, we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of it. The question will be, is this a one-off for the Winnipeg Jets? Or is this something that's going to linger? Game 4, Sunday at 12 noon, looms large in this series. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to see you, too. I would say that was the second bunch of sucks that ever did suck. That's my expert analysis. But
from now, all of our expert analysis should just be Simpsons quotes from now on.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah,
I'd be fine with that. But look, I mean, the St. Louis Blues are too good a hockey team for them to have just rolled over. We weren't expecting that. They were going to be amped up. We knew they were going to be. They got a great crowd there in St. Louis. And so I was, I'm not trying to be know-it-all, but I mean, I anticipated that the Jets would. Look, they weren't going to win. They weren't going to sweep the series. There was no chance that the Jets were taking this one in 4. And I thought St. Louis was going to win tonight's game before the game. And you're right, Drew. The starts are problematic for what we've seen in 3 games for the Winnipeg Jets. And it has not been ideal by any stretch of the imagination. So it's definitely an area that Scott Arniel's going to have to work on for Sunday, that noon start, which we've already heard the players talk about how excited they are. They like that. They don't have to do too much. They just wake up, eat, and get ready for the game.
What about me, though? I'm not ready for a game at noon. I have to go through my pregame routine. Nobody's concerned about my well-being. That's really what bothers me. Yeah. I have a whole scenario. I got to do things on Sundays. Now it's all thrown into disarray because of this odd noon start. What about me, Dave?
Well, Drew, that's a question you need to ask someone in the NHL, not myself.
I've sent a tersely worded email, and I've been responded to, who are you and why do you think we care?
Now, I will say, though, I mean, one of the things that one of my areas of concern, see you later, Spency, was that,
hey, thank you.
I thought the special teams were a concern for this Jets team. I've been talking about it all season long, not the power play, the PK specifically. And there are so many things that went wrong for the Winnipeg Jets. And I have to say, and again, I don't say this from a Jets lens because I never speak specifically from a Jets lens, but I was so unimpressed, as I tweeted out, with the officiating once again, because the marginal play penalties that are being called against both teams, St. Louis and Winnipeg, have been atrocious. It's so soft.
It's soft and it's whistle happy.
It's just stay away from the game. If there's something egregious, then you call a penalty. If not, let them play. Because, like I said, in this instance, I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the hockey game.
Certainly
I think
not.
The St. Louis Blues were primed and ready right from outset. But at the same time, I mean, it impacted the game in a negative way, and I just didn't like it. So, the Jets got punched in the face. You had to be expected to get a punch in the face. And now we're going to see what this team is made of. I actually think the Jets are going to take Game 4, but they needed a wake-up call. I mean, and again, I want to be clear. Like, I'm in the room. We're not. I don't think any of these guys were taking St. Louis lightly.
No.
So I just think that everyone anticipated that this was going to. I don't know that the Jets necessarily expected this sort of tidal wave of Blues attack, they got it. They got punched in the face. Now we're going to see how they respond on Sunday.
And then we talked about that for a while. Remember, this is the Winnipeg Jets team that has not won a playoff game in the last number of seasons after losing a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be part of the storyline over the next 2 days because, again, you have all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all of us assembled media members have things we need to, narratives we need to talk about and, columns that need to be written and everything along those lines. So There's going to be plenty of time to dissect this game, and that's certainly going to be one of the things that gets mentioned is that the Jets haven't won a playoff game since losing a playoff game, since going back to the series really against.
Well, look at their showing it right now on the thing.
Well, this is the last 7 road playoff games. Yeah. The struggles away from home. Not that the record on home ice has been that great either. But when was the last time the Jets won a playoff game after losing one? Would it be against? Well, certainly Nashville. I guess St. Louis would have been the last one. In 18-19, they lost the first 2, and then they won the next 2, and then they lost the next 2 after that. So that was the last time the Jets in a playoff series, I believe, off the top of my head. Won a game. So they need a better response on Sunday.
No. Technically, they won against the Oilers in that 21 where they swept the Oilers.
Yeah, but they never lost.
Oh, lost. Sorry.
After a loss is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So, Sunday is obviously going to need to be a far better response. And we'll get into that over the course of the next, 45, 50, 60 minutes, however long this post-game show lasts for here. We are live at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. So many of you joining us here, joining us from your home, wherever you may be. We appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and, of course, turn your notifications on to be sure to join us again Saturday morning. And then again Sunday afternoon for the post-game show. But this is just we talked about this. You knew that St. Louis was going to come out strong today. They've come out strong the last couple of games. Yeah. And I think that's certainly going to be something that Scott Arniel is going to work on over the next 48 hours is why are we so flat to start these games? Mm-hmm. Why did the Jets struggle with the emotion of the whiteout, whereas the Blues used their home crowd emotion as a catalyst to getting this game underway on the right foot, scoring so early and so often in the first period? These are all legitimate questions that, frankly, that's on the coaching staff to come up with the answers as to the why regarding that. But the Winnipeg Jets, again, St. Louis is too good of a team to give up 3 first-period goals and expect you're going to really stage a comeback. Yeah. Yes, the Jets got it within 2. Yes, we'll talk about the Cole Perfetti, goal/no goal, and the decision in there. But frankly, once you're down 3-0, it's such an uphill climb that you're in trouble at that point in time onwards. And the Jets really were in trouble from the get-go in tonight's game. It was an all-systems failure for the Winnipeg Jets. That's how I referred to it here at Boston Pizza and talking to the assembled masses. And I see no reason to sort of turn away from that opinion from the Winnipeg Jets. And I'll be honest, I think it started before puck drop when Dylan DeMello is out with an illness, and Scott Arniel, I think, made a poor decision in moving Luke Shen up to play with Josh Morrissey rather than just simply putting Colin Miller into the lineup and playing him with Morrissey. I thought moving Shen up with Morrissey, that means all 3 of your deep pairings changed significantly. When you also had Pionk pumped up there a little bit, you just had too many moving pieces on the back end for the Winnipeg Jets in tonight's game. I would have tried to keep things simple. Put Miller in the lineup, put him with Morrissey, leave Pionk and Sandberg together, leave Stanley and Shen together. Instead, I thought the Jets were just sort of behind the 8 ball from the get-go because of that, partly because of that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair assessment, Drew, and it is quite the change from the previous 2 games. And I think, again, we like Luke Shen in that 3rd pairing, not so much as he gets moved up the lineup and asked, especially when you no longer have that last change and they can get the pairings, the matchup story that they want out against your D pairings. So not ideal in that regard. And I just, again, we do need to qualify. The Jets have won 2 games. So it's not as if, and I'm not saying that they won those 2 games and dominated by any stretch of the imagination. Right. But I mean, honestly, if you're watching a lot of these playoff games, how many teams are dominating the opposition? Toronto's up 3-0. I don't know that they've dominated Ottawa.
Game 1, they dominated.
Fine, but what I'm saying is, it's been 3 games. They're up 3-0. Have they dominated the Leafs?
No, it's a game.
Sorry, the Leafs
games 2 and 3 were overtime games.
That's my whole point. So I'm just saying that you're not watching games where you're sitting there going, okay, these teams are like Ottawa. Washington is up 2-0 over Montreal. but Montreal was in those games.
First game went to overtime.
So you're the fact of the matter is that, and teams, and let's be realistic, the Jets had a bad game. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. They had a collectively bad game.
So let's talk about this bad game. I know this is a Jets team that, when they've been bad this year, we saw their most recent bad game was the game in Los Angeles.
Okay.
What was that be, about 3 weeks ago now? The one where they lost four. They lost.
Yeah.
And then they went to Vegas on Thursday. 2 days
they won
later,
the first 4-0, right?
They shut out Vegas. Yeah. So, based on what you've seen, what Winnipeg Jets team, based on the first couple games of this series, where they have certainly been the better of the two teams in games 1 and 2. They obviously weren't tonight.
Yeah.
What Winnipeg Jets team shows up? We've been talking about the punch in the face narrative from the start, all season long, really. That when you get punched in the face in the playoffs, how do you respond? From your perspective, what do you think you're going to see from the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday? A 12 noon start, a weird start time.
Yeah.
Are the Winnipeg Jets able to use this as fuel?
Yes.
Or are the Winnipeg Jets going to have to start, or are they going to maybe start questioning themselves, second guessing themselves, doubting what they've been doing so far, and as a result, maybe let those seeds creep in?
I would be shocked if that was the case. Scott Arniel has had this team bounce back after every time they've had a tough game. Again, he treats the wins just like they're a loss almost, in the sense that he doesn't overly celebrate them, kind of like Craig Berube after a goal. And I think that if you really watch this team, he have there been games where they haven't been prepared? Yes. Like tonight, I would say that this team wasn't ready to go right when puck drop was ready to, whenever that was. I know it was originally an 8:30 puck drop. I think it was around 8:45, 8:50 when it finally went off. But the fact of the matter is that, again, like, I don't know, I tend to get a measure of the team, and I feel like we've watched this team for so long, it's hard to kind of lose the focus of that. And in my mind, again, wouldn't be overly concerned. I do feel like the team's veteran enough. They learned from last year. They learned from the year before. It's not the same team. And I know that people are upset about Hellebuck and the team collectively. And you have a right and an entitlement to, because you dedicated your time to watching that effort, or lack thereof in some instances. Dylan Sandberg is another guy who didn't think of a great game. And yet, do I worry about Dylan Sandberg? No, I just think that sometimes guys just didn't look like they had it tonight. I mean, there weren't too many Jets that I would actually give a positive rating to. So
that's why, to my point, all systems failure. I thought the best Jets player probably in tonight's game. I thought Cole Perfetti had a decent game, and I thought that he was, he was trying. He was making some plays in the offensive zone, especially on the forecheck. He was winning some puck battles. I mean, again, the fourth line, Jared Anderson-Dolan is, and David Gustafson and Morgan Barron are responsible for the first Jets goal in tonight's game. But other than that, it was not very many people you could point to and say that this was something that was good that came as a result of tonight's game. I wonder if there's not some line juggling ahead of Sunday's game. I know that Scott Arniel has been reticent to make any changes, but Vlad Nemesnikov, I don't know how much longer you can just keep running that line the way it is. I think Niederreiter and Perfetti have been good. Mm-hmm. Nemesnikov, I don't think he's been exposed, but right now I wouldn't mind seeing Morgan Barron get bumped up and Nemesnikov move to that fourth line center role for the next little while. I know that Barron, Anderson-Dolan, and Gustafson have been good.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the way they've been playing, but maybe Morgan Barron gives a little boost to that line. I don't think that there's a big difference between the Nemesnikov and Barron has been really quite good for the Winnipeg Jets since he's become a centerman. Yeah. So I wonder if that's something that Scott Arniel considers for Game 4. But at the same time, is that a head coach panicking after just one bad game? Again, these are I think decisions. I wonder if that's more of an in-game adjustment that you see on Sunday if things still aren't going well.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. That's something we're going to obviously keep an eye on.
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, regardless of whether they cancel one of the practices scheduled, I suspect they'll have at least one before then. So we'll get some sort of indication from that. I mean, again, they can always change things. And And I'm not trying to make excuses. We also don't know if the DeMello illness is spread to maybe more than just Dylan DeMello.
Sure.
You want to say, like, why is Vlad Domestikov not look like he's got it, the legs right now? Maybe there's something going on. We don't know. I mean, we'll probably get an indication because there's enough Winnipeg media that are in St. Louis that they'll get us some intel in that regard.
Right. Is there a flu bug? Is there some sort of
right?
or is it a one-off,
sure.
Dylan DeMello illness issue for tonight's game?
Yeah, I mean, look, Dylan DeMello. And when we spoke to Scott Arniel yesterday in the Matt Frost, he did say, well, he hesitated when he was asked about DeMello's absence, and then he said, "Oh, what was that word I used?" And then he was supplied the word maintenance, and he said, "Yeah, that's it. It's maintenance for him." But it was just a curious way of kind of addressing it. I thought, that's interesting. So, but he took morning skate, as according to Murat. So at the same time, you're like, okay, well, he's probably fine then. Maybe it was just maintenance. And then, of course, we find out tonight that he's sick. So, but again, that's just the team had to still have a better start. And I don't think everybody would be suffering from that. So at the end of the day, you look at this team and you think to yourself, okay, this team was the President's Trophy winners.
Right.
This team is a team that has not had very many streaks in the losing category this year.
True.
And so, we're seeing a team that has, generally speaking, bounced back from bad games. So again, Scott Arniel has kept the team grounded. You might not like his coaching decisions tonight. And again, like I said, I think he's open to criticism for them. But I just think that he's also had them ready to go when the next game kind of comes up and presents itself to you. And so there's no better opportunity here because game 4 is going to be critical. I know we're not done discussing game 3,
sure,
but this is, again, I think it's also important mentioning St. Louis is a really good hockey team. We knew Binnington's a good goaltender, and we knew that St. Louis is a really good hockey team. So, I mean, people focus on the Jets, rightly so, because that's what we tend to do. But, the St. Louis Blues the St. Louis Blues had been dominant, obviously, with their 12 wins in a row before they lost to the Jets, and the Jets had been dominating them in the third periods.
Right.
Not so much today when they gave up 4 goals in that third period, but I guess what I'm saying is that you just have to credit St. Louis. It's not like they suddenly regressed. I mean, obviously they're missing Holloway, which is a big loss, and we'll see also, Drew, on Sunday whether Gabriel Velarde, who this morning again was still in the non-contact, he was kind of the player we were wondering about. He remains in non-contact. Is Gabriel Velarde going to be back, and what kind of difference would he make to this Jets lineup?
I don't expect him back on Sunday. I would be surprised. I mean, again,
I think it all depends on tomorrow. If they practice tomorrow and he's in a regular jersey, then I think he plays Sunday.
Yeah, I mean,
until
he's out of the yellow jersey,
yeah, there's no point in talking about it.
It's a non-issue. The truth of the matter is, I mean, from now, the next game after Sunday's game, Game 5, which we know is going to happen now. There was some question about it if the Jets were going to win in 4, and clearly that's
remember,
not going
folks,
to be the
my
case.
prediction was Jets in 5, so
okay,
you knew there was going to be at least 5.
There you go. It's still a possibility. Wednesday is Game 5. Now we don't know what time Wednesday's Game 5 is going to be. And that's obviously we're waiting on the NHL to make that announcement. Just so everybody knows, right now there's 3 games scheduled for Wednesday. 2 of them, Florida and Tampa. Florida's up 2-0. Montreal and Washington. Washington's up 2-0. So both of those games theoretically could still be sweeps, which would render a Game 5 moot. We know that the Jets and the Blues are going to have that Game 5. So logically, let's assume it's unlikely that I think both of those series are going to be sweeps. It doesn't seem like that would be, I think that probably Tampa's going to win one of those games. I think that it wouldn't surprise me if Montreal wins one of those games on home ice as well when they play when they start there tomorrow. So as soon as there's probably a confirmed game for the Eastern time zone, that should probably tell you that the Jets game is not going to be at one of those 6 o'clock or 6:30 local starts. It's probably going to be a little bit later. You might be looking at another 8:30, 8:15, somewhere in the sort of 8 o'clock hour time frame for Wednesday. As soon as we know, of course, you'll know on illegalcurve.com and on all of our social media platforms.
And ball hockey is making a good point because there were some comments saying, how could a Stanley Cup champion give up 7 goals in a game? But the Florida Panthers, who were the Stanley Cup champions last year, gave up 8 to the Oilers in Game 4. So
it happens.
It happens.
I mean,
it does happen to teams that can go on and win the Stanley Cup.
Look,
again, it's a little early in the first round to be talking about that, but like I said, this was a kind of game that the Jets, I think probably the key to me is that you can hang this loss on Connor Hellebuck. can hang it on the defense. You can hang it on the forwards. Like there were a lot of guys who just didn't.
You can hang
carry
it on.
their weight.
It was a
collective team
right.
loss.
If there's 19 skaters, including the goalie.
Yeah.
Of those 19, how many would you say had a B+ or better game? Maybe 2, if that.
I don't know. I'd give anyone the.
Maybe you give Perfetti a B+. Maybe you give Anderson Dolan, and
Yeah, I mean, how many minutes did they play though? At the end of the day,
probably not very many. I mean, we'll look
I'd say it was under 6 or 7.
Right, because I mean, when you're down and you're
chasing,
you're looking at your top guys. I mean, probably by the end of the game when it got so out of control, they played a little bit more. Gustafsson 8.5,
8:33. Yeah.
Anderson Dolan 8:27.
Okay.
And Morgan Barron.
But like you said,
they
used them at the end of the game.
Right, at the end of the game when it's well out of range. But so you're right. Everybody can look in the mirror and say, I didn't do my 10 or 15% to make my team better.
Yeah.
And that's something that obviously they're going to have to use, and you would want them to use as motivation and fuel for Sunday's game against the Blues, where the emotion level, I think, from the St. Louis perspective, won't be as high. The Jets' anger levels should be higher, and their give a damn factor should be much higher as well. And that's just what
and
you have to
their
do with
attention
the team.
to detail.
Well,
Drew.
of course, the attention
their
to detail.
attention to detail.
That's my line, and you know how I love using the attention to detail line. But I mean, these are all factors that are going to be moving forward for your game on Sunday now, and that's where the Winnipeg Jets, I think, are going to have sort of hang their hat at this point and try and figure out a way to get better, a way for them to just really be. I think they have to start the game better also on Sunday. That's really, to me, a big issue.
They have to
right
take
now.
the crowd out of it. They have to go into St. Louis. I mean, look, you're not going to take the. You can silence a crowd, and like, you have to credit Jordan Binnington. He made some real nice saves. Made a nice save on Kyle Connor.
Yeah.
Obviously, the controversial one, they're showing it currently on the replay.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the controversial one. That's the Perfetti goal/no goal. It was ruled no goal on the ice.
All the experts here at Boston Pizza said it was a goal, just so you know.
For the record, I said they were not going to call it a goal.
Yeah, you said, I would agree that you said it was a goal, but
Just
the
like,
NHL's not going to overturn it because it was ruled a no goal on the ice.
Right, because that there was no
Irrefutable.
clear, indisputable evidence. And I know that there's a lot of screenshots going around social media where people are saying you can clearly see the puck is over the goal line, and I understand the sentiment behind those. And as Elliot Friedman said on the broadcast, does he think it probably went in the net? Yes. Do I think it probably went in the net? Yes, I do. Is it silly that in 2025 there's just not a microchip in the puck that can tell you with no dispute one way or the other if the puck went over the goal line? Absolutely. It's like breaking the plane in football. And the NFL, I believe, this year has announced there is going to be a chip in the ball to determine if the ball crosses the goal line, which means the NHL will probably get to it in about 100 years, given their usual time frame to how far behind they are the other professional leagues.
Well, that is a fair point. I saw him saying that. I mean, they were showing it on the broadcast. Couldn't really hear him, but Drew, it's pretty pathetic. I mean, again, it's not having a huge outcome. I mean, 3-1's different, obviously, than
right. The timing of it, if the goal counts.
Yeah,
it's 3-1 at about the halfway mark of the second period. So there's a lot of time in that game. There's still half a game to be played, give or take, if that goal is awarded on the ice.
I love the fact that it's like, well, it changes the composition of the puck, and I mean, let's be realistic. It's like probably just costs too much, and they don't want to have to lose. When the pucks go out of the.
Perfetti's talking right now. We're watching it here at
that's
Boston
Josh Morrissey,
Pizza.
Drew.
Sorry, I know that's Morrissey, but Perfetti was talking, and Murat was tweeting about it.
Yeah,
saying that Cole Perfetti was unequivocal that his view of his goal was that it was in fact a goal. Said his view on the ice and on video from the bench was clear. So clearly, and you saw Perfetti say it immediately on the ice, and players know. I mean, more than anybody else, more than any video review, more than anything else, players know when the puck is in the net. And so Perfetti immediately said that's a goal on the ice. Unfortunately, that doesn't count. That counts about as much as my opinion, your opinion, and everyone else's opinion here at Boston Pizza and everybody who's joining us on our YouTube channel. The officials, the Situation Room, they have the ultimate decision, and they went with the call that was on the ice.
Clearly anti-Winnipeg.
The bias is overwhelming.
I should say anti-Manitoba.
Yeah, there you go. You're wearing your Manitoba T-shirt there. I think it's anti-illegal curve is really what I think it is. That's how deep rooted the conspiracy is. It goes all the way down to making sure that illegal curve doesn't get to use that as the Seagram shot of the game, which we'll obviously get to in a couple minutes here on the post-game show. But that's how significant the conspiracy theory is within the NHL to keep a good Perfetti goal down. It made a big difference in the game. Again, I don't think the Jets, given everything else that happened tonight, were going to be, in this one. But 3-1 with 30 minutes to play is a real big difference than 3-1 when they finally scored to make it 3-1 in the third period.
Right.
So that's just where you're at. Again, if people are looking for a silver lining, something that they can hang their head on, Game 3 in 17-18 when the Jets played the Minnesota Wild.
Drew was very much hoping that they didn't score that seventh goal.
The symmetry was going to be perfect. The Jets lost to the Wild in Game 3 6-2. In that game 3 before coming back and winning game 4.
The symmetry might be off, but the symbolism is the same.
That's right. The idea, the thought behind the thought is still prevalent. Remember that game 3 in Minnesota? The Jets obviously left to go to Minnesota. They couldn't land. Do you remember this one?
Yeah, I do. Remember,
they couldn't land because there was a big snowstorm, so they circled for a while. Then I think they ended up landing in something like Sioux City, Iowa, some random place. And then they
sat on the tarmac for like a while.
They sat on the tarmac. They went into the airport in I don't know if it was Sioux City or Sioux Falls, South Dakota, somewhere. And they they stayed there for a while. Then they eventually had to fly back to Winnipeg. And then they flew to Minnesota on the day of the game because of whatever that snowstorm was that was hitting the Twin Cities prior to game 3 in 17-18. I'm not saying that I don't think there's a snowstorm in St. Louis. I don't think that's going to be an issue tomorrow, but I just remember that that game 3 and all that sort of weirdness that was going on because the Jets weren't able to land on time in St. Paul or in Minneapolis for that game 3 all those years ago. But now they have the 48 hours. They have the 2 days off. I'm not sure if they're going to go to Brooks and Dunn. That's what's happening on Friday. I'm not sure they're going to go to Cat Williams. That's what's happening on Saturday at the Enterprise Center. I'm not lying to you.
I thought today was Sunday. My days are all screwed up. I had no idea. You're like on Friday. I'm like, wasn't Friday like 3 days ago?
No, Friday's tomorrow. If you get to St. Louis, you can still get to Brooks and Dunn in time. I'm not sure.
Would not see that.
You not a country guy?
I am not a country guy.
Okay. How about Cal Williams? Is that any more interest to you?
I don't even know who that is.
Cal Williams, the comedian? No? Okay. Dave's 0 for 2 on that one. He's not going to be on stage of rumors anytime soon, but that's okay. We still love him nonetheless. I'll tell you what, we're about 30 minutes into the pregame, into this post-game show, talking about the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. So why don't we get into the Play Now game recap? Not sure we're going to do every single goal, but we'll do some big ones.
Please not.
Yeah, there's 7 goals for the Blues. The last few of them really were just windowed. We're just sort of icing on the cake and pouring it on a little bit.
I mean, as much as I want to go over the big blast by
I think Cam Fowler just got another assist, by the way. I think he's up to 7 assists on the game for tonight. But we'll talk about it all as we get into the Play Now game recap here.
The Play Now game recap.
Big thanks to our friends at PlayNow. You know them, of course, as the title sponsor for all of our programming. Learn to bet with PlayNow, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply, 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. Big thanks to our friends at PlayNow. We mentioned the start of the game was not what the Winnipeg Jets wanted. I think that's a fairly obvious understatement, as it took the Blues all of 48 seconds to get the opening goal. Pavel Buchnevich, who had been called out.
You'll be hearing that name.
Yeah, you're going to hear that. Exactly. Here's his name more than once in the course of tonight's game. He was called out by his coach saying they needed more from him. Mm-hmm. I think we said the same on both post-game shows.
Yep.
Game 1 and 2, that he had been sort of invisible in this game. Well, he gets off to the good start. A real nifty play in that he gathers up the rebound off the point shot from, I guess it's Cam Fowler's point shot. Snuggerud also gets a tip on it. And Buchnevich looks like he's going to kick it in. And he kicks it, but just before it's getting close to getting into the net, he also tips it at the same time. So he kicks it to his stick and then tips it into the net off of the deflection. Connor Hellebuyck's in good position. I don't think the puck ever actually got all the way through to him. It just deflected off of Snuggerud. and got to a good position for Buchnevich, who made no mistake to make a 1-0 for the St. Louis Blues. Exactly the start that the Blues needed on home ice to put the Winnipeg Jets on their heels.
You think 44 seconds in or whatever?
48 seconds to be exact. But, it's trouble for the Winnipeg Jets at that point in time, and it's 1-0 for the Blues. And then, of course, it doesn't take him long to make it 2-0. Buchnevich, again, less than 3 minutes later, a power play goal, the special teams for the Winnipeg Jets, rearing their ugly head. This is with Luke Shen in the box for tripping on Robert Thomas.
I really want to do my best on Cherry here because it's like all I can just think about is like how mad Cherry would be at some of these penalty calls. Who did penalties so like honestly, they were so soft. It was actually embarrassing.
Look, I would agree that
again, and for the record, I mean that against both Winnipeg and St. Louis. I've hated them for the whole series.
Yeah, you have been consistent in saying, again, this isn't about the Jets. You're saying that the officials are calling too many soft calls on both teams.
Yeah.
That usually the standard in playoffs is a little bit higher for what constitutes a penalty. And whether or not you think that's right or not, so be it. But I would say that there have been a lot of soft calls that have gone against both teams in the series so far.
And Drew, I just want to quickly assess one thing. Like, to me, again, I don't think it would have – if you give up a goal in the first minute of the game, I don't think it automatically means you can't win that same hockey game.
Sure.
But everything the Jets needed to do, you talk about that good start, being ready to go.
Yeah.
To give up a goal, to let the crowd get into it. Because, I mean, again, if you come out the way St. Louis came out in Winnipeg and took control of the way the game with the physicality and all of that, then it's a different story. And again, like I said, we don't know the health situation. Like if Dylan DeMello is sick enough to miss a playoff hockey game, perhaps, I mean, again, like these guys are all in close proximity, so we don't know if it's impacting other guys in the room. And so, but again, like I said, like to me, that's when you saw it. Like we're standing here in Boston Beach. It was completely full at the time. And sure enough, you're sitting there going like, it's not even 48 seconds into this first period, and you're already down 1-0. Like that is just again, like I credit the folks that were in here. They kept up their enthusiasm at that point. But it's just got to be very deflating for the team to just give that crowd, that home crowd, that sort of that boost that they were looking for. Because I mean, look, if you're St. Louis, you're going into this game, you've played well. The game one loss is the one I think they're lamenting because they had that game, and of course Winnipeg took it, especially in the third. But from that perspective, they're the nervous team. They're the ones that are worried about where this is going, and you're the one who, in theory, is in control. And especially if you come out confidently, especially if you come out physically and you control that puck, you can set that tone. Instead, what ends up happening is St. Louis comes out physically, St. Louis comes out strongly, and they score an early goal to take control of that hockey game.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know I'm dating myself with this reference, but I remember, back in 1996 when the Jets played Game 3 at home against the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah. The Jets, came out, they got the first goal in that game. It took most of that first period to get that first goal.
Isn't that when like Happy Boulin earned his name, the Boulin Wall?
No, he got that in Game 5 as he made something
71. Like wasn't it like 70?
It wasn't quite that many, but it was like 51 saves if I'm not mistaken.
Something crazy
to send the game back to Winnipeg, so the Jets could, before they left, of course, they got to, play their last game on home ice.
Yeah,
which
30,000 Winnipeggers went to in the old Winnipeg Arena.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like for everyone. It was 51 saves for Happy Boulin back in Game 5 of 1996. But to your point, it's just you have to try and take the home crowd out of it. The Jets haven't, they didn't do it in tonight's contest as the Blues get those two early goals.
I was also surprised, sorry, Drew, that it seemed like not a lot of guys reacted to the first goal because I thought it was I didn't see originally him tip it up into the net, so it looked like a clear kick.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, nobody's really reacting, so maybe I'm missing something. And then sure enough,
you could see
you look and you see him actually put it upstairs.
That's right. He kicked it to himself. I mean, I don't think that he was necessarily trying to do that. I think he was.
No, he definitely. Oh, you mean like kicked it to himself in the air?
Yeah, I think it was fortuitous that he got a stick on it after he kicked it.
I think he was directing it.
There's no question he was, and then he got a stick on it so that the goal counted.
Everything kind of fell into place.
Everything went well for the St. Louis Blues in tonight's game. Then they get the power play goal, as I mentioned. This one's a real nice one. This is a nice tip by Buchnevich off the Robert Thomas pass, or pass shot, I guess, and it's 2-0, and you're not even 3.5 minutes into the game. And then the Jets, again, you got to get out of this first period. You've been horrible in the first period to start. The Blues are coming at you. Things sort of settled down after the halfway mark of the first period. So maybe if you can get out of the first and you're only down 2-0, you can take an inhale and then get back into the game over the final 40 minutes. And Hellebuck made that great save. Before the Blues made it 3-0. They were able to make that great save to keep it, where he sort of goes side to side, post to post with his Gumby Spider-Man-like save, and keeps it 2-0 at that point. You think, okay, maybe the Jets are going to get out of this period. Maybe they're going to be able to go to the dressing room and sort of just rehabilitate their game after the first 20 minutes. Yeah. Instead, they're down 3-0 after Cam Fowler scores it.
Scott Arniel speaking right now. Shockingly, he's smiling. I'm surprised about that.
Well, I think it's.
I do also wonder if he's. Again, I do. To me, there's a bit of. Is he going to be able to use this? Like, does he know that? Look, like my team just got punched in the face.
Sure.
I'm going to use this against. Again, people might lament or criticize his decisions, and again, no coach is infallible. You're always welcome to make critical analysis of their decision making. But what I do think is interesting is that he's been a very good motivator this year, and he has gotten these guys ready to go for these games. So again,
this is going to be a big test for him. This is the first time he's ever lost a playoff game as a head coach. How do you? He knows this dressing room better than anybody else.
Yeah.
He's been there for a number of years. Even when he was the associate head coach with Rick Bowness, he knows this room. He knows how what makes them tick. So he's now got to figure that out. Between now and Sunday as to what sort of tools does he have at his disposal to get the Winnipeg Jets back to playing the game that they played so effectively, in games 1 and 2, even better than that, to be perfectly honest. Where,
absolutely.
Because game 1 and 2, the first period, it's been the third periods that they've been dominant.
Yeah,
those have been the best periods. So how do you play that game for 60 minutes?
Including that third period against the Blues on, was it April 7th?
Yes, the regular season game.
Yeah, the 3-1 game where they absolutely torched. They gave it 2 shots in that
game,
something
like that. So how do you get that? How do you get that for not just the third period, but maybe the first period? How do you shut them down and get an early lead in the first? In game 3. Pardon me, in game 4.
Yeah.
How do you do that instead of relying on holding on to a lead in the third period? Important to do so, but maybe you want to give the St. Louis Blues a little bit of the same treatment that they just gave you tonight. You want to maybe make that statement.
I'm also curious if Arniel will be motivating his team with the fact that the Blues continued to use their top power play unit when the game was out of hand at that point.
Look, you
use anything.
You use every single edge you could possibly think of.
Yeah.
Not that St. Louis needs to call off the Dogs. They're welcome to keep pouring it on. Don't get shorthanded 5-on-3 if you don't want to see our top power play unit. But you're absolutely right. If Scott Arniel thinks that he can use that as a means to motivate the Winnipeg Jets ahead of Game 4 on Sunday, he's absolutely entitled to use that, and he's absolutely probably going to use that. What he's saying, and we're not listening to the audio because we're live here at Boston Pizza, but Murat is saying Scott Arniel confirms that Dylan DeMello missed the game due to illness. That development came late in the day, quote, not until 4:00 until said Scott Arniel.
Yeah.
So apparently it was a late illness for Dylan DeMello. Whether or not I believe anything a coach says at this point in time.
I'm like, so wait a second. So yesterday was a maintenance day,
right?
And today he just mysteriously has an illness at 4:00, but was fine.
Yeah. So
okay,
sure. Whether or not you believe that is a separate issue entirely, but whatever it was 3-0 for the St. Louis Blues after 20 minutes after Cam Fowler scored his first of the series. He's had a hell of a series. He's been a great addition for the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a while.
Yeah, we have. Cam Fowler had 5 points tonight. He had a goal and 4 assists. Robert Thomas had 4 assists, and of course, Buchnevich.
I think I saw our friend Andy Strickland say that's the most points ever by a Blues defenseman in a playoff
game. Yeah, I'm not surprised. 5 would be a big number.
Take that, Chris Pronger.
Buchnevich had 3 goals and an assist. So again, some of the Blues' best players who again, Jim Montgomery said,
Well,
those guys need to be better. They were better tonight.
Drew, the Blues had a 7-0 shot advantage in this hockey game.
Like after the first 10 minutes or 7
whatever
minutes.
it was, 7-0. I mean, that is significant. So, the Jets, I mean, it just comes to there's certain things I can listen to and I'll be like, okay, that makes sense. You can't say anything about the start time. Both teams at the start at the exact same time. So it's not as if somehow you're like, well, the Blues had this weird 8:30 start time. Like, no, the Blues had to start at 8:30 as well, or 8:50. I guess we should be more accurate. But the fact of the matter is that this team wasn't ready to go. Scott O'Neill's actually press conference, and again, we're just reading body language, was not nearly as bad. So I guess here's
what he has to say. So Scott O'Neill.
See, this is beautiful. We got real time RT analysis. Let's go.
Courtesy Murat Atesh of The Athletic, who's been tweeting about the post, who tweeted out sort of the press the press conference.
Who needs to go to St. Louis when we got ourselves a Murat?
That's right. Murat's in St. Louis for us. I'm not sure he knows that he's working for us, but that's a separate issue entirely. Scott O'Neill on whether or not this game is harder to bounce back from given the lopsided score. Quote, It's one game. We lost one game. Whether it's 7-2 or 1-0, we lost one game in this series. O'Neill then added the main takeaway from the game. Quote, we lost the game in the first period. They scored 2 goals in the first 3 minutes, got on our heels, crowd got behind them. We were terrible in the first period. Game was over in the first. That's the Jets head coach, Scott O'Neill, echoing our thoughts. If you get down 3-0, can you come back? Yeah. We saw Edmonton come back from 4-0 in game 1 against
How did you
LA
feel about
Kings.
that when it was 4-0, Drew?
I was a little bit, I thought they asked you to edit that out of the post-game show.
Sorry.
You forgot to do that. That's okay.
Forgot to do it.
Edmonton came back. That was, I guess, Monday night, right? It was Monday.
Yeah.
Edmonton came back from being down 4-0 after I, had them dead and buried.
Yeah, it was the old Monty Python.
Yeah.
I'm not quite dead.
Well, they still lost. They
still
still lost in
alive.
regulation time in any event. So they lost 5-4.
Terrible.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they lost 5-4.
Was it 5-4 or 6-5?
6-5. You're right. It was 6-5. They lost in regulation time. In any event, 3-0 for St. Louis after 20 minutes. The Jets thought they made it 3-1, but the goal by
Hold on, I asked people to smash the like button, and Nardwar's Secret Son wrote, or Nardwar, sorry, I didn't realize BC fan, obviously.
Yeah.
I can't smash the like button. We are Winnipeg Jets fans. We will miss the like button and let the other team score. Good comment right there.
Yeah. The Perfetti goal doesn't count. I mean, actually, hang on, I got a quote from Scott O'Neill on that here as well, if I can find here. Here it is. Quote, there was no clear-cut picture that showed the puck was over the red line.
Right.
There's lots of things that made it look like it was, but there was no perfect evidence that it was 100% over the line, and obviously the call on the ice was no goal. So that's the Jets head coach saying, there was no clear, indisputable visual evidence. If the call on the ice initially had been goal, it would have stood as a goal on the ice. Instead, the refs have to make a call. They made their call, and then the Jets obviously get bit by that decision in the course of tonight's game. It's still 3-0 after 20 minutes. After 40 minutes, after there was no blood in the second period. A much better second period for the Winnipeg Jets in that they were competitive in it.
Yeah.
But by then, it's probably too little too late, given that you're already down by those 3 goals.
Yeah, and look, it looked like a goal. I'm not surprised but I will say I'm not surprised that it was not overturned because again, it's the whole idea of conclusive proof. I did see Ed Tate, the former Winnipeg Free Press reporter, have a good comment. He said, if that's the case, if this is the standard, I wonder why more goalies don't have black blocker gloves, because it makes it that much harder to see the puck, as opposed to, if you're wearing like white or something like that, where it'd be a little more clear cut. So interesting. Of course, Eddie works for the Bombers now and does some great work with the Bombers, but I thought that was an interesting comment from him. And longtime sports writer for, like I said, the Winnipeg Free Press, covered the Manitoba Moose and the Winnipeg Jets before going to the Bombers. So shout out Eddie Tate.
There you
go. It's unfortunate. Of course, that would have been Cole Perfetti's first playoff goal. And I think if we're going to applaud anyone, I thought he was in it. He was engaged physically.
Yeah.
And
he was the best Jets forward, of the top 6 forwards for the Jets. The players who were in the top 6, in the top 9, I thought he was the best for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Scheifele, Connor, Iafallo weren't particularly noticeable. Niederreiter is not doing much.
I don't have a problem with Niederreiter's
I'm not
game,
saying
to be
I'm
honest.
just saying I just don't think he's doing much. Unfortunately, I just don't think there's enough there right now. Vlad Nemestikov again, similar. So yeah, Perfetti of the top 6 was for sure, I think, the best.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Jets make it 3-1 at the 4:32 mark of the third period. Maybe a little bit of life. David Gustafsson, his first of the playoff, second career playoff goal, assisted Jared Anderson-Dolan and Morgan Barron. It's great hustle. It's great play. It's actually, there's a lot of hustle involved here. Nice play by Barron to chip it out, and Anderson-Dolan just wins a puck battle and then shows off some real nice skill going wide and then dropping the pass for Gustafsson right in the slot, and he makes no mistake to beat I was going to call him Craig Binnington, but Jordan Binnington won to make it.
I think Craig Binnington was on I think he was in Ottawa.
He was
tonight.
in Ottawa cheering on the Sens today.
That's what I was going to say. I just saw Craig Binnington because he was just on
a little confused.
Yeah.
So he made that goal, made it 3-1 early, about 5 minutes into the third period. We'll call that one our Seagram shot of the game.
Yeah.
The Seagram shot of the game.
Big thanks to Seagrams for their continued support of the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Craig Anderson, not Craig Billington. Thank you, Timmy.
Yeah, Craig
it's funny. As soon as I said it, I'm like, Craig Billington. I'm like, that doesn't sound right, but I'm like, whatever. I'm like, Drew said it and it kind of sounded right. Craig Anderson. Thank you. See, that's why producer Timmy keeps us on our on the straight and narrow.
There you go. Now I have to. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Anyways, it's late. It's 12:20 on Friday morning now, so you'll cut us a little bit of slack. Tons of you still joining us here. We appreciate that.
I will say, having just concluded Manitoba Moose media availabilities the last few days, that a lot of Moose players who, of course, were teammates of Jared Anderson-Dolan's are overjoyed at his success up with, including head coach Mark Morrison. That media availability is on our YouTube channel, where he talks about a lot of the Jets prospects. So if you haven't given that a view, give that a view. We'll have that on. I'll break it down a little bit more tomorrow. But I can say that a lot of those guys were real excited at the opportunity that Jared Anderson-Dolan, or they call him Jad, is getting up with the Jets right now.
Oh, there you go. So 3-1 at that point in time between the Jets and the Blues. Unfortunately, it was an error. It was a game of errors for the Winnipeg Jets. Less than a minute later, a bad play by Connor Hellebuyck gets stripped behind the net.
It's funny, we've been lauding him of late of his puck handling and his ability to handle the puck behind the net. And I know you're going to go through it, Drew, but I would say Dylan Samberg, he was a little turned around and not vocal enough. Kind of didn't give his goaltender any sort of heads up, like, hey, guys are on you. So yeah, Hellebuyck didn't handle the puck well, but he also didn't get an assist from his guys that were on the just behind him.
Right. It's on Hellebuyck, for getting his pocket picked by Robert Thomas. But I agree with you. I thought that the communication from the defense here, in which case it would have been Dylan Samberg, wasn't good enough. Hellebuyck had no idea that Robert Thomas was right behind him. Should Hellebuyck know that? Probably. Was he a little too casual, a little too patient with the puck behind the net? No question about it. But, you do ask your goalies. I know,
as Nathan Simkin points out, Samberg didn't slop Thomas.
Is that my old high school? I
don't know. I was thinking that might be the guy I used to play hockey with.
It is. It's I think our old high school, but my old high school buddy, my old high school classmate, Nathan Simkin, joining us here in the chat. He's on the West Coast. He's joining, so it's a little bit earlier where he is.
Yeah.
I think it's only 10:20 p.m. Not quite 12:20 a.m. on Friday morning. Just too casual by Hellebuyck behind the Jets net at this time. But Samberg also has to be communicating better. The whole team has to be communicating better. And you saw that as an issue for the Winnipeg Jets all game long. Thomas picks Hellebuyck's pocket. He feeds it out to Buchnevich. It's the hat trick. It took way too long to get the hats off the ice. I think it was the first time the Blues have ever had a hat trick. They didn't know what to do based on
one against the Jets in 2019.
I'm joking, based on the time it took for the ice.
I just want to remind folks of that.
Okay. In any event, 4-1 at that point in time, and any hope that the Winnipeg Jets had after the Gustafsson goal quickly dissipated, and then from then on.
Drew, that was what, 52 seconds after the goal by David Gustafsson?
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, it didn't take very long.
I mean, again, it's just that just steal a Drewism.
Thank you.
Is an attention to detail mistake by the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, you're not in the game.
Yeah.
You're not playing particularly well.
Yeah.
There's nothing that anybody is going to point to. Sure, you can get your dander up about the Perfetti goal, non-goal, but you're down in this game. You don't really deserve to be in it, and yet you're now down 3-1, which is a very
4-1.
No. You're 3-1 before. I'm saying before.
Before the goal, yeah.
And so that's the part that's disconcerting, because you've got a game that is very manageable, and yet you're not paying that attention to detail that you give up a goal 52 seconds later. At that point, like I joke saying, let's just go to running time, because it's the game's over. They're not coming back from a 4-1 deficit.
Right.
And also how they scored. It's one thing if they scored some unbelievable goal, they scored on the power play, whatever, but a mistake like that just deflates the whole team. And at that point, they're done. You're trying to set a message for the next one. Although so far the Jets' message for the next one was, oh, sure, we'll give up another 4 goals. 3 goals.
Exactly what happened after that. So once that 4th goal went in, and it was 4-1 for the Blues, they pile on 3 more for the St. Louis Blues. The Jets do get a power play goal. Neil Pionk, his first career playoff goal. It's a slap shot from the point. Colin Miller, Mason Appleton with the assist. But again, after the 4-1 goal, everything else was just relatively useless at this point in time, all things considered.
We call it academic.
Academic would be a good way to describe it. The Blues and the crowd certainly enjoyed it. The Jets, you could see the frustration building throughout the back half of that third period. Number of penalties taken. The Blues had multiple 5-on-3s. There was a couple 10-minute misconducts handed out. Who got a misconduct? Let me see.
Stanley got a misconduct.
Yeah, that's right. Braden Shen got one. Vlad Nemesnikov also got one. Luke Shen took a number of penalties in the course of this game. So again, all-systems failure.
Yeah, I mean, that hit that took Luke Shen out. Was that the 5th goal or the 6th goal when he got schmeiced against the boards? And then
was that the Kyrou goal? No, that was the Torpchenko goal, was it not?
I think
so.
So
So it was the Torpchenko goal.
That was the 6th goal, I think.
Yeah, that was the 6th goal. That's right.
So I mean, it's just, again, like, it was just, the Jets were just playing slow. They just, again, like, I think I think one of the problems that they played, like that to me was kind of summing it up.
Right.
Because you just saw, like, you don't have them. It's funny, like, again, we've talked about how with the guys at the Moose, we were talking about how, like, especially the European guys, like how coming over to North America, you just don't have as much time. And it was like these guys were playing as if they were over Europe, and now they're playing in North America for the first time, and they think they've got that much more time. You don't have that much time.
When you're on your heels and the other team is on their toes, and I mean, that's when we've seen the Jets do it so often and so well as well. When they're playing at their best, they are so aggressive with the forecheck that the opposition doesn't have time to think, and that's where turnovers come from. And that was St. Louis tonight. St. Louis, again, they are, in my estimation, 15% of what they're 85% of what the Winnipeg Jets are.
Yeah.
The Jets generally are 15% better. Tonight, it certainly wasn't the case. The St. Louis Blues were the far better team. The Jets had no response for them. And now the question becomes one of, what of the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday at 12 noon for Game 4 between the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. We'll take our commercial break. When we come back, more on the Jets and the Blues, plus a look at the out-of-town scoreboard. Much more to come. It's Friday morning. It's the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk. We're live at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. Smash the like button and subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on while we head to commercial.
Phyllis
break.
is here all the way from Morden, for God's sakes. And I mean, come on, smash that like button. So she can't tell you in the chat to smash the like button.
That's because she's here at Boston
Because
Pizza.
she's here, not in Morden, watching the show. So make sure you smash the like button for Phyllis, who drove all the way in to watch this show.
We want to thank you for not betting with PlayNow and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with PlayNow, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Bottom of the hour Friday morning, it's the Illegal Curve post-game show. Pardon me, Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk with you. The Illegal Curve hockey show is going to come your way Saturday morning at 9 a.m., where we are going to, of course, talk extensively about the Jets and the St. Louis Blues. You can join us for that. Harnarayan Singh, the play-by-play broadcaster of the series, is going to join us on Saturday morning. I believe Murat is also going to join us on Saturday morning. He's going to be in St. Louis. I'll confirm that tomorrow. But anyways, we remind you, set 9 a.m. Saturday morning. We'll get you set for Game 4 between the Jets and the Blues. And then, of course, the post-game show following Game 4 is going to be right around 2:45, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. So we'll talk about the Jets and the Blues. We'll have you covered in its entirety, extensive coverage of this Jets-Blues series still to come over the next couple of days. We look forward to you joining us for that coming up on Saturday and then again on Sunday. Josh Morrissey on Dylan DeMello's last-minute absence. Quote, "Listen, obviously you develop chemistry with your partner, but we've got lots of great players back there. I definitely miss Mel out there. DeMello." I guess he doesn't call him Smoke. He calls him Mel.
Yeah, Mello. They call him Mello.
Yeah, I know. I get it. Hopefully he's back Sunday, but at the end of the day, that's not an excuse. So that's more from Josh Morrissey. Murat saying, Scott Arniel, his frustration in the press conference, which showed a couple of times. Game was over in the first was one of those instances.
That's an interesting comment from a coach.
Yeah, saying that the game was over in the first period.
Yeah.
No, it was. I mean, he's honest.
No, I was going to say, it's an honest assessment. The game was over in the first.
Apparently, he bristled when he was asked about the St. Louis Blues adjustments that they made for tonight's Game 3. Quote, "Obviously, they did, right?" So the Jets head coach is obviously now going to look to himself to try and make similar adjustments to get the Winnipeg Jets back on their winning ways ahead of the Game 4 on Sunday afternoon at 12 noon. Quick look at tonight's out-of-town scoreboard.
By the way, when do we start doing this?
Well, it's the playoffs, so we'll do it for now, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we'll all go home and go to bed. The Florida Panthers defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning 2-0 tonight.
Hold on. We got a guest. We got a big guest in the.
I know that he's already.
What do you mean?
I saw him in the chat already.
See, Ezzy, I see you in the chat. I bring you right in. Drew saw you hours ago.
I wanted to block him from the chat, to be perfectly honest. 2-0. The Florida Panthers defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning. They take a 2-0 series lead. Brandon Hagel with a bad hit on Sasha Barkov. Hagel's going to get suspended for at least Game 3. Might be Game 3. Might also be Game 4.
I love Hagel though.
Well, it was a bad hit. It was a blindside hit to the head. This one was inexcusable. He's going to miss at least game 3, I would imagine. NHL is going to have a hearing about that, I believe, tomorrow, so we'll hear more about that. The Maple Leafs have taken a 3-0 stranglehold on the Ottawa Senators in overtime for a second consecutive win. They are now up 3-0 on the Sens. 3-2 was the Maple Leaf victory over Ottawa. In Minnesota, in St. Paul to be more exact, the Minnesota Wild 5-2 over the Vegas Golden Knights. They've taken a 2-1 series lead over one of the stalwarts of the Western Conference, a team that had been expected to go far. The Minnesota Wild are giving the Vegas Golden Knights everything they could handle and then some.
Well, again, as you and I have talked about, this Minnesota team was, now that they're healthy, was the team right with Winnipeg. So
that's right. When they were healthy, when they had everybody in their lineup, when they had Kirill Kaprizov playing at the Hart Trophy level of Kirill Kaprizov, they were a top 5 team in this league. Now Vegas might be finding out that Minnesota is back to that. And then, of course, the final game tonight, St. Louis 7, the Winnipeg Jets 2. The Jets still lead the best-of-7 series by a 2-1 margin. That will do it for us tonight here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. A big thank you.
You don't want to hear my last 2 days of Moose media availability?
Not
Drew?
right now. Maybe save it for Saturday.
No, do you want to hear the last 2?
Can we save it for Saturday? It's 12:33 in the morning.
All right. I'll defer.
You can't even speak
right
choking.
now.
You're coughing. So you have to stop talking right now is what I'm telling you. Just for your own well-being, you have to stop talking.
I never knew Drew cared about me. So nice.
I've never cared more about you right
Although
now.
I will say Drew is my second favorite Mindell that showed up to the
My dad was
to Boston
earlier.
Pizza. Sheldon came here. We had a nice chat. We took a selfie together.
That's beautiful.
So Sheldon was here. So Drew's my second favorite Mindell.
That's I can absolutely agree with those with that ranking, that power ranking of Mindell's. I have no problem with whatsoever. Big thanks to everybody here at Boston Pizza who joined us. There you guys go. You're cheering over there. The diehards.
Phyllis isn't going to get home till almost 2 o'clock in the morning.
Phyllis, you got to drive ahead of you still. I'm impressed. Big thanks to everybody who joined us at home for tonight's post-game show, and a big thanks, of course, to our sponsors. Boston Pizza, they're always great hosts for us. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, PlayNow, Holt Dental, City Place, and Seagram's. Support all these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Producer Tim doing the great job making us sound good like only he can do. Always appreciate producer Tim's efforts.
Shout out to intern Massey.
Yeah, intern Massey was here. And
he's got a good story coming out. We're not going to reveal too much, but he's got a good one coming up for illegalcurve.com.
You can tune in for that on illegalcurve.com coming up soon in the next day or so. We're looking forward to that.
And also, Drew, the other thing we should mention, since I'm thinking about the website, and Connor Harabchak wrote a really good article on the website yesterday talking about, today, talking about the Jets being the road warriors because they were the best road team. So interesting that this happened given how good they were all season long.
Well, they have to see if they can get to being that good again on Game 4 on Sunday. They want to resume their winning ways on the road as they were so good all season long, like you said. Thanks, everyone, for joining us again. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast, leave us feedback, and turn your notifications on. That way you won't miss a minute of any of our great coverage here on the Illegal Curve post-game show, the Illegal Curve hockey show, and then, of course, another Illegal Curve pre-game show coming up on Wednesday at City Place prior to Game 5. We don't know when because we don't know what time the game's going to be, but stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have an answer for you on Saturday morning's Illegal Curve hockey show. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. For producer Tim, for Dave Minuk, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Until Saturday at 9 a.m., we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.